The discovery of ancient fears. The excavation site on Zirion 7 stretched across barren landscape like an open wound in the planet's crimson surface. Dr. Kellen Voss knelt beside the latest discovery, his weathered hands carefully brushing centuries of dust from carved stone. The human xenoarchaeologist had spent 3 years working alongside the Galactic Research Consortium, and this dead world held more mysteries than any site he had explored. Another tablet, Dr. Voss? Research Director Thys Koran approached with measured steps, her tall Xanthari frame casting shadows across the dig site. Her silver skin gleamed in the pale light of Zerion's twin suns, and her forearms moved with practiced efficiency as she recorded field notes on her datapad. Yes, and this one's different. Kellen's voice carried excitement despite his exhaustion. The symbols match the pattern we've been finding, but the preservation is remarkable, almost like they wanted this message to survive. Thys examined the tablet through her specialized optical implants. The Xanthari had led archaeological expeditions across dozens of dead worlds, cataloging the remains of civilizations that had vanished long before her people achieved spaceflight. Yet something about these particular ruins troubled her scientific mind. Commander Zara Nexus materialized beside them, with the silent grace typical of her species. The Vorthak military leader served as security chief for the expedition, though her presence often felt more like surveillance than protection. Her reptilian features remained impassive as she studied the carved stone. More ancient superstitions? Zara's voice carried the dismissive tone she reserved for archaeological discoveries. These primitive species left warnings about everything from solar flares to asteroid impacts. Fear was their primary emotion. Kellen shook his head, his brown eyes reflecting genuine concern. That's just it, Commander. These aren't random warnings. We've found identical messages on 17 different worlds, spanning thousands of light years and multiple epochs. The consistency is unprecedented. The translation chamber aboard their research vessel hummed with quiet efficiency as Kellen worked through the night. The quantum linguistic processors struggled with the archaic symbols, but slowly meaning emerged from chaos. Each tablet told the same story in different words, painted the same picture with varying details. The builders from the small blue world, Kellen read aloud as Thys reviewed his preliminary translations. They who shape metal with thought, who turn emptiness into abundance, who refuse the gift of surrender. Thys's forearms moved in complex patterns, a Xanthari expression of deep confusion. These descriptions are oddly specific for mythology. Most extinct species wrote about their gods or demons in abstract terms. Because these aren't gods or demons, Kellen said quietly. They're describing humans. The revelation hung between them like a charged particle field. Thys had worked with humans for years, found them pleasant enough colleagues despite their odd customs and emotional instability. The idea that ancient civilizations might have feared humanity seemed absurd. Impossible, she said finally. Your species achieved spaceflight barely a century ago. These tablets predate human civilization by millennia. Kellen activated the holographic display, showing tablet translations from multiple worlds. Look at the descriptions. This bipedal, soft-skinned, with hair covering their heads, eyes that hold starlight, voices that carry across void. The Corvani tablets describe human eye colors perfectly. Blue, brown, green, hazel. How could they know that? The Xanthari scientist's optical implants whirred as she processed the information. Her people valued logic above all else, and the evidence defied rational explanation. Perhaps convergent evolution. Similar species might develop across multiple worlds, on 17 different planets, all describing the same behavioral patterns. Kellen shook his head. The Zerathi tablets warn about humans who build bridges across impossible chasms and make weapons from children's toys. The Morvac inscriptions describe humans who fight with the fury of dying stars and learn the secrets of their enemies' weapons. Thys studied the translations with growing unease. Her people had evolved as peaceful philosophers, believing that superior intellect could solve any problem. The idea of species that combined intelligence with aggressive adaptability disturbed her fundamental worldview. Even if these descriptions are accurate, she said carefully, they're clearly exaggerated. Your people are resourceful, certainly, but hardly the galactic threat these tablets suggest. Kellen pulled up another translation, this one from the most recent discovery. The Nexari left this warning just before their civilization collapsed. We thought them weak because they fought amongst themselves. We failed to understand that conflict made them stronger. They do not simply adapt to challenges, they transform challenges into advantages. Beware the day they unite their purpose. The research vessel's conference chamber could accommodate representatives from dozens of species, but today it felt cramped, despite hosting only the consortium's senior staff. Director Thess presented their findings to colleagues who listened with varying degrees of skepticism and amusement. You're asking us to believe, said Chief Administrator Dox, his massive Thurian frame dwarfing the conference table, that primitive, humans somehow inspired terror across multiple advanced civilizations, species that mastered faster than light travel and planetary engineering, were afraid of creatures who still fight with chemical explosives? Kellen stood at the presentation podium, his human height making him appear small among the assembled aliens. The evidence is overwhelming. We found warnings in 17 different archaeological sites, written in 12 distinct languages, spanning 4,000 years of galactic history. The consistency cannot be coincidental. Commander Wang. Zara rose to her full 8-foot height, her Vorthak heritage giving her natural authority in military discussions. Dr. Voss, with respect to your expertise, these ancient species were clearly less advanced than we assumed. Any civilization that could be threatened by pre-spaceflight primitives was probably doomed anyway. That's exactly the attitude that got them killed, Kellen said firmly. Every single tablet warns against underestimating human potential. The Corvani describe first contact with humans who arrived in crude vessels that barely held together. Within 50 rotations, those same humans had reverse-engineered Corvani technology and improved it beyond original specifications. Science Officer Kelma, a crystalline being whose species communicated through harmonic resonance, chimed skeptically. Even assuming these accounts are accurate rather than mythological, they describe events that occurred millennia ago. Modern humans may share genetics with these ancient variants, but they cannot possess the same capabilities. Theiss activated the holographic display, showing recent surveillance data from Earth. Actually, our monitoring stations suggest otherwise. Human technological advancement has accelerated exponentially in the past century. They've progressed from chemical flight to space exploration in less than 70 years. Still well within normal parameters for emerging species. Administrator Dox rumbled dismissively. My own people achieved similar advancement rates. Kellen felt frustration building in his chest, the peculiarly human emotion that his alien colleagues often found disturbing. You're missing the point entirely. These warnings aren't about human technology. They're about human nature. The tablets describe beings who refuse to accept defeat, who turn every setback into motivation, who innovate under pressure. He activated another display showing combat analyses from the ancient tablets. The Zerathi military records describe human prisoners who escaped from maximum security facilities by fashioning tools from their own clothing. The Morvac War Chronicles tell of human soldiers who continued fighting after losing limbs, who used enemy weapons better than their original owners. Ancient propaganda, Commander Zara said with finality. Defeated civilizations often exaggerate their enemies' capabilities to excuse their own failures. The conference chamber fell silent as the senior staff reached their inevitable conclusion. Kellen's research would be filed as an interesting historical curiosity, nothing more. The consortium had more pressing concerns than ancient mythology about humanity's supposedly terrifying ancestors. That night, alone in his quarters, Kellen reviewed the translations one final time. The warnings painted a consistent picture across thousands of years and multiple civilizations. Humans who adapted faster than their enemies could plan. Humans who turned defensive wars into conquests through sheer determination. Humans who never ever gave up. The most disturbing translation came from the final Corvani archive, discovered deep within Zerion 7's core ruins. It wasn't a warning about humans. It was a prophecy. when the builders achieve the Void Walker's gift. The ancient text read, "When they master the art of bending space to their will, the galaxy will learn why we carve these warnings in eternal stone. The children of the blue world sleep now, but their awakening comes. May those who follow us prove wiser than we were." Kellen stared at his communication console, knowing he should report this discovery to consortium leadership. But he also knew they would dismiss it like all the others. The galaxy's greatest civilizations were about to make the same mistake that had cost 17 species their existence. On his desk, a priority message indicator flashed urgent red. Earth Command was reporting successful test flights of humanity's first faster-than-light prototype vessel. After a century of theoretical research, humans had finally achieved interstellar capability. The ancient prophecy was beginning to unfold, and nobody was listening. When the prophecy awakens, Captain Sarah Chen had dreamed of this moment since childhood, but standing on the bridge of humanity's first interstellar vessel made the reality feel surreal. The UES Endeavour represented everything humanity had accomplished in one gleaming package of innovation and determination. Around her, the crew worked with practiced efficiency despite the historic nature of their mission. "Final system checks. Complete, Captain," reported Navigation Officer Martinez. "All departments report ready for jump." Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of representing her entire species in first contact with galactic civilization. Earth's governments had chosen her carefully, a decorated explorer with diplomatic training and unshakable calm under pressure. What they hadn't mentioned was that she might encounter species who viewed humanity as primitives barely worthy of notice. "Execute jump," she commanded. Space folded around them with a sensation like falling upward through honey. The Endeavour's experimental drive performed flawlessly, translating the ship across 47 light-years in 17 seconds. When normal space reasserted itself, they found themselves face to face with destiny. The alien patrol fleet waited, in perfect formation around a massive space station. 12 vessels of clearly advanced design, their hulls gleaming with energy patterns that human science could barely comprehend. The lead ship alone was 3 times the Endeavour's size. "Incoming transmission," Communications Officer Park announced. "They're using our own radio frequencies somehow." The view screen activated, revealing a figure that made several bridge crew members gasp. Fleet Admiral Draxon of the Galactic Consortium stood 9 feet tall, his crimson scales catching the light like polished armor. Behind him, other aliens observed with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed disdain. "Primitive vessel from the restricted system," Draxon's voice carried absolute authority. "You have violated consortium space without authorization. Submit to inspection or face immediate destruction." Sarah stepped forward, maintaining diplomatic composure despite the threat. "Admiral Draxon, I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Endeavour. We come in peace, seeking contact with galactic civilization." A sound like grinding stone emerged from the alien commander. What humans would later learn was Drakari, laughter. "Earth creatures think they can negotiate? Your species has barely mastered chemical propulsion. Return to your system before we decide you're worth the effort to eliminate." "We've achieved faster-than-light travel," Sarah said calmly. "Surely that qualifies us for consideration as a spacefaring species." "Impossible," Draxon snarled. "Our sensors detected no advanced technology. Your vessel appears constructed from primitive metals and basic electronics." On the research station orbiting Zerion 7, Dr. Kellen Voss watched the first contact transmission with growing horror. The consortium leadership was making exactly the mistakes the ancient warnings described. Beside him, Director Thys monitored the encounter with her characteristic analytical detachment. "The humans are handling this poorly," she observed. "Captain Chen should submit to inspection rather than attempting to negotiate from a position of weakness." Kellen shook his head, remembering the tablet translations. "They're not weak, Thys. They're being underestimated, just like the ancient warnings predicted. Watch what happens next." On the Endeavour's bridge, Sarah felt familiar calm settle over her mind. Every human explorer recognized this feeling. The moment when peaceful intentions met immovable obstacles. Her species had faced this choice countless times throughout history, and the response was always the same. "Admiral," she said quietly, "we didn't travel 47 light years to turn around at the first sign of difficulty. Perhaps we can reach an understanding." Draxon's scaled features twisted with contempt. "Understanding? You primitive creatures? Understand nothing. Your vessel is an insult to engineering. Your species lacks the evolution necessary for galactic citizenship, and your very presence here demonstrates dangerous ignorance." The transmission ended as Draxon's fleet moved into attack formation. 12 advanced warships against one human explorer vessel. The outcome seemed inevitable to every observer except the humans themselves. "Captain," Tactical Officer Reynolds reported with remarkable calm, "they're charging weapons. No hostile action detected yet, but they're clearly preparing for combat." Sarah nodded, her mind already shifting into the mode that had made her Earth's most successful deep space explorer. "Reynolds, analyze their weapon signatures and energy patterns. Martinez, plot evasive courses that keep us within communication range. Park, maintain open channels to record everything." "Ma'am," Chief Engineer Thompson's voice carried over internal communications, "I'm detecting unusual resonance patterns in their engine systems. Might be exploitable if they force our hand." The words sent ice through Kellen's veins as he watched from the research station. The ancient Corvani tablets had described this exact scenario. Humans who studied their enemies during first contact, who learned valuable intelligence while appearing to surrender. "Thais," he said urgently, "contact the consortium fleet immediately. Tell them to stand down." The Xanthari scientist looked at him with four-eyed confusion. "Dr. Voss, the humans clearly need to accept their position. Admiral Draxon is simply establishing proper protocol. He's making the same mistake that destroyed 17 civilizations," Kellen said desperately. The tablets warned about this exact situation. Humans who appear helpless but use the encounter to gather tactical information. On the Endeavor, Sarah opened communications again. "Admiral Draxon, we've complied with your request to maintain position. Perhaps we could discuss terms for peaceful coexistence." "Terms?" Draxon's voice carried disbelief. "Primitive species don't negotiate terms. You will submit to immediate boarding and inspection, after which we will decide whether your species deserves continued existence." Captain Chen's expression never changed, but every human on the bridge recognized the subtle shift in posture. Their captain had just been threatened with genocide, and that moved the encounter into entirely different territory. "I understand your position, Admiral," Sarah said with deadly calm. "However, I should mention that our vessel's data cores contain complete records of this conversation. Should anything happen to us, Earth will know exactly who was responsible." The implicit threat was clear to everyone listening. Humans didn't simply accept destruction, they ensured accountability for those who harmed them. Draxon's scales darkened with rage. "Threats from primitives? Your pathetic world couldn't threaten a single consortium patrol vessel, much less our entire military." "You're probably right," Sarah agreed. "But humans have a saying, Admiral. We don't get even. We get creative." The research station's emergency communication array activated as Kellen finally reached Elder Quen on the distant world of Corvaxia. The ancient being appeared on screen as little more than shifting energy patterns held together by will and memory. "The humans have awakened," Kellen said without preamble. "They've achieved faster-than-light travel, just like your people's prophecy predicted." Quen's energy patterns flickered with what might have been recognition. The last survivor of the Aino Corvani civilization had spent centuries in meditative isolation, becoming more spirit than flesh. "The builders stir at last. How do the current powers respond?" "Exactly like your warnings described. They're treating humans as primitive creatures, threatening them with destruction." The ancient being's energy patterns shifted into configurations that conveyed deep sadness. "Then they will learn what we learned too late. The builders do not surrender. They do not retreat. When threatened with destruction, they become destruction itself." The first shot came without warning. Admiral Draxon's patience had finally expired, and he ordered a demonstration of consortium firepower. The energy beam lanced across space toward the Endeavor, designed to disable their primitive engines and force immediate surrender. It never reached its target. "Incredible," Director Thiss whispered as she watched the tactical display. "They're somehow deflecting the energy beam using their ship's magnetic field generators." Sarah's voice remained perfectly calm as she addressed her crew. "Reynolds, you were right about their weapon frequency. Martinez, execute evasive pattern. Alpha. Thompson, I need everything you can give me from the engines." The Endeavor moved like a dancer through space, avoiding targeted fire with precision that defied its crude appearance. But more disturbing to the watching consortium fleet was what the human ship did between evasive maneuvers. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported with growing confusion, "the human vessel is scanning our ships during each attack run. They're learning our weapon patterns, analyzing our defensive capabilities." Draxon's rage reached volcanic proportions. "Impossible. Destroy them immediately." The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for generations. 12 advanced consortium warships against one human explorer vessel. The outcome should have been predetermined, but humans had never accepted predetermined outcomes. The Endeavor couldn't match consortium firepower, so it didn't try. Instead, it used superior maneuverability to stay ahead of targeting systems, while systematically analyzing each enemy vessel. Captain Chen's crew worked with efficiency that seemed almost supernatural to alien observers. "Their tactical adaptation rate is unprecedented," Kellen said as he watched the engagement unfold. "They're learning faster than the consortium can adjust." Elder Quen's energy patterns pulsed with ancient memory. "This is how it began with my people. We thought ourselves superior because our weapons were more powerful. We failed to understand the power means nothing if you cannot hit your target." The turning point came when Chief Engineer Thompson made a discovery that would change galactic warfare forever. "Captain, I've been analyzing their energy signatures. Their ships are networked together. If we can disrupt the command vessel's coordination systems, the entire fleet becomes vulnerable." Sarah nodded with grim satisfaction. "Reynolds, prepare a focused electromagnetic pulse. Martinez, plot a course that brings us within optimal range of the flagship." "Ma'am," Navigation Officer Martinez said quietly, "that course takes us directly through their crossfire. We might not survive the approach." Captain Chen's smile carried the weight of human history. "Officer Martinez, we're explorers. Risk is what we do." The Endeavor's final approach run took 17 seconds that felt like 17 hours. Consortium fire converged on the human vessel from multiple angles, but Captain Chen's crew had learned their enemy's patterns perfectly. The ship threaded through the attack like a needle through cloth, reaching optimal range at the exact moment Chief Engineer Thompson triggered the electromagnetic pulse. Admiral Draxon's flagship systems crashed simultaneously, taking the entire fleet's coordination network offline. For crucial seconds, 12 powerful warships became individual targets instead of a unified force. "All vessels," Sarah broadcast, "on open frequencies. This is Captain Chen of the Endeavor. We've demonstrated our capability for both defense and offense. I strongly suggest we discuss peaceful coexistence before the situation escalates further." The response came not from Admiral Draxon, but from an unexpected source. Elder Quen's energy patterns materialized on every ship's communication system simultaneously. "Admiral Draxon," the ancient being said with voice like distant thunder, "you faced the builders from the small blue world. My people carved warnings about them in eternal stone, yet you have repeated our mistakes exactly." Draxon's scales had turned pale with shock. "Elder Quen, but the Corvani have been extinct for—" "I am the last," Quen interrupted. "The final witness to what happens when advanced civilizations underestimate human potential. We thought them primitive because they fought with simple weapons. We failed to realize that simplicity and effectiveness are not opposites." On the research station, Director Thiss watched as the tactical situation reversed completely. The human vessel remained exactly where it had been, but now held the advantage through superior strategy rather than superior technology. "How is this possible?" she asked Kellen. "Humans achieved spaceflight barely a century ago." Kellen smiled with species pride he had never felt before. Because we never stopped fighting this. While your people evolved past conflict, we kept learning from it. Every war taught us something new about adaptation, innovation, and survival. Elder Quen's energy patterns shifted as the ancient being addressed both fleets. Admiral, you have two choices. Accept humans as equals in galactic civilization, or repeat the mistake that cost 17 species their existence. Choose wisely. The aftermath of first contact changed everything. Admiral Draxon's fleet stood down, recognizing that humans possessed something their advanced technology couldn't match: the ability to adapt faster than their enemies could plan. Captain Sarah Chen found herself representing humanity in emergency sessions with consortium leadership. The aliens struggled to understand how a species they had dismissed as primitive could demonstrate such tactical superiority. But Dr. Kellen Voss understood perfectly. The ancient warnings had been accurate, in every detail. Humans didn't simply explore space. They transformed it into an extension of their endless adaptability. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. As Elder Quen had predicted, the builders from the small blue world had awakened. And with their awakening came the dawn of a new age among the stars, where strength was measured not by technology alone, but by the courage to never surrender in the face of impossible odds. The ancient prophecies were complete. Humanity had earned its place among the stars exactly as the warnings had foretold, through determination, innovation, and the refusal to accept defeat.